Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a video for you that's just kind of me thinking aloud about something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. Oh my, have I been thinking about this. And that is the idea of regulatory capture and review. So the idea here is that at some level you want independence between the people doing evaluation and the people being evaluated. This is a fundamentally good idea in pretty much everything. This way the evaluators, whatever they are completely free of bias, at least that's the dream, and they're able to look at the world a little more objectively. The idea of regulatory capture goes against that. So imagine some weird messed up country where like the head of the Governmental Communications Commission recently worked for a major cell phone company in that country. And then he consistently works to like mold regulations in such a way that'll maximize profits for the industry at cost to the public. That's completely ugly. It's silly. It's ridiculous. It should never happen, but sometimes I guess it happens. And when it does, a system that's meant to protect and help the public breaks down, and it serves the people who were previously being evaluated. And that's not a great idea. That's called regulatory capture when it happens in a government situation. But the thing is, I think this is a thing in reviewing as well. Of course, reviewers aren't regulators. We don't make any rules at all. Heck, we don't necessarily have much of an effect on things. But the reviewers, in order to be worth a damn, need to be willing to call people on their crap. A reviewer needs to be able to say, this is not good, this is good, etc. That is something that is kind of important. You need to tell it like it is. That's what makes a reviewer, at least in my mind, a reviewer, rather than, for instance, an advertiser or something along those lines. But the thing is, independence, that becomes a factor, and it kind of changes over time in the lifetime of a reviewer's channel. So I remember way back when, a couple of years ago, when I was completely independent, nobody freaking knew about me because nobody knew who I was. I had a channel, I had like 100 subscribers. Nobody really gave a damn what Nick Shabazz had to say. And I don't want to sound like I'm self-aggrandizing here. I'm just kind of thinking aloud about the progression of the channel here. But look, at that stage, kind of reminds me of a Mitch Hedberg joke where he was talking about going on internet radio. And he says, he asked the host, can you swear on internet radio? And like, of course you can swear on internet radio. No one's freaking listening. It's like, can you swear in the woods? Yeah. And so similarly, there's no consequence either way for what you say. I mean, you can, and at that point, you're kind of having to borrow everything off of friends. You're not making any money. Heck, you're losing money for the most part. But at some level, that's kind of the purest form of reviewing, because there's nobody's got really a horse in the race. It's just an enthusiast talking about the gear that they've got. Nobody's trying to put a thumb on the scale, so to speak, in either direction. And so, at that level, there is a certain degree of complete independence because no one really gives a crap. And then there comes a point where you gain a little bit of prominence, where, for instance, enough people are paying attention that makers start to notice your reviews at the very least. And you get commenters and things like that. You get makers, for instance, who might interact in the comment section and say something like, hey, you got that wrong. Oh, hey, glad you liked it. And at that point, you're a little starstruck. Like, I remember the first time, like, I made a review and Brad Southard, the knife designer, commented on the review. It was a little bit like, oh my God, I'm starstruck. I mean, and so that's kind of a, but it's not like strong motivation either way, because it's just like, wow, look at what just happened. That's weird. And I mean, at that point in time, when you gain enough prominence that people might recognize your name, for instance, then makers may start to be a little bit more helpful. For instance, and I've heard stories of this very regularly, and I've probably experienced it, and frankly, I've probably experienced it a lot more than I think I have. But people are like, oh, well, crap, he's a YouTuber. Let's speed up this repair a little bit. Well, orders are closed, but you know what? It'd get a little bit of profile, so we'll make one for him. That kind of thing. And they're also, at that point, when you reach enough prominence, there starts to be more money. I mean, more views on the YouTube level mean a little bit more revenue, although, yeah. And then, more importantly, you start getting generous viewers popping up. I remember the point where I realized, holy crap, not only are people watching this, but people really want to support that. I started the Patreon, and people were actually, giving me money, and people still are, and I'm so grateful for that. But at that point in time, it starts to actually make sense to review. Like, it's not something that you do just because of passion anymore. You can do it because of passion and because, well, it lets you play with new gear because people are helping you out. But that's a major watershed moment there. And so at that point in time, things start to shift a little bit when you get that kind of prominence. Then there comes a point, which I think I may have hit at this point, where you kind of become a thing. between the channel here, the Knife Gripes on Knife News, my opinion stuff, and then just my general kind of trolling, commenting in the community, some people at least, seem to be treating me as like an actual thing, like as a force, and I gotta be honest with you, it's really weird to me. I mean, I look at my subscriber count still with disbelief. But the thing is, there are at least some subset of people who seem to be considering me to be some kind of an authority on gear and whatnot, and, that's really cool, and I appreciate the respect, and I appreciate the support and whatnot, but it has some consequences, or at least I think it's having some consequences on my life that kind of affect that independence a little bit. I mean, at one level, it's nice because stealth reviews are becoming increasingly common. These are where a maker will send me a piece of gear, and I can't show you one of them because they're stealthy, but they send me gear, and that way I can take a look at a prototype or something like that and give them my thoughts, give them the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly, say, you might consider tweaking this, I'm going to beat you up for this, I'm really going to beat you up for that, and they can then take that into consideration. They can fix it or they can not, depending, but they kind of know what my feelings are going to be ahead of time, and they can make any tweaks that they think merit being made. And so I love these products. That's great. But that's something that seems to happen more and more, is more and more people think of me as somebody who knows something about something rather than just a random jackass. And then, you start getting, you start to get more people who are just interested for the numbers. I noticed when I hit 40,000 recently, suddenly I must have gotten on some mailing lists because I started getting more offers for paid reviews where a random company I have never heard of, I've never interacted with, would send me a message and say, hey, Nick, we love your channel, or more specifically, we loved your video, and then they would list the full video title of one video that was published like 2.5 years ago that their automatic program pulled. We want you to do a review for our brands. We're willing to pay, $150 per positive review, etc. Those people can themselves. I turn those down. Well, actually, I don't even turn them down. I don't even reply to them. But that starts to become a thing. And so, if somebody suddenly starts reviewing cosmetics, they always are for cosmetics. I don't want to review cosmetics, people. I'm not, you can't fix me with makeup. But anyways, that's beside the point. But those kinds of things happen. But more importantly, and something I've been noticing lately, is that makers start sending review samples for loan or for free. And the thing is, I kind of do my best not to get this to happen. What I mean is that every time somebody wants to send me a review sample, I send out my form letter that basically says, hey, look, I hope that you get a really good review because your product is really good, but this is going to be an honest review. I'm going to talk about the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of whatever you put on my table here. It could be a gem, it could be junk. And if you're looking at this as advertising, you're looking for a free, he's just going to say nice things because we sent him something, that's not what's going on here. When I send that form letter, some people disappear, and it's happened. There have probably been about 10 people who've, sent me an inquiry like, hey, we'd love to work with you, and then I send them that, and I never hear from them again, and you know what? Okay, that's fine. Some people, though, tend to subscribe either explicitly or implicitly to the idea that, well, any publicity is good publicity. And one person said so negative, exactly. I'm not going to name the company, but, whatever works. And, some people are just really confident in their products, and in many cases, they have a right to be. The people who seek me out for reviews are generally the people who think that they've figured out all the things that are wrong with it and fixed them, and that's great. I love seeing those things. But I've had a lot of people send along gear for me. I mean, Kaiser sends gear on a pretty regular basis. Benchmade has sent gear. Spyderco, Viper Shop, Sharpeners, St. Clair, the Nano Oil folks have definitely, like the pen thing, provided me with that. The Reverie Watch Company, Monta, Through Night, Manca, Mastrop's Knife Division, TRM, Malamic lent me a Swish for review at one point in time. But look, whenever this happens, I do disclose it at the start of a review. That's absolutely something I want to make clear, just so that way people know. And, if you feel like, this one must be paid off, well, no, it wasn't, but at least you know at the start of it. And you also get kind of a separate class of things where makers offer a little bit special treatment. And very often it's just kind of put as an offer. And, things like, well, I'll sell it to you at the dealer price. Well, this one's on the house for you, Nick. Your money's no good here. I'll check yours over twice. When it comes to quality control, you'll get one of the very first ones. And you know what? This starts to get a little bit weird for me. Look, I know that the makers mean well. And in many cases, I think it is just people wanting to be nice. And especially, it makes sense wanting to be nice to somebody. If they feel like, I have an effect on their business, wanting to be nice in that case makes a lot of sense. But the thing is, it's hard for this not to feel like a bit of a quid pro quo. It's something I'll generally turn down. And I'll only really accept it if there's absolutely no kind of motivation for me not to, if I'm just going to, if I know I'm selling it to a friend or something like that immediately, but I do my best not to, go there, or I'll do it only when I've already finished with the review or something like that. And I'll always say directly, look, this isn't buying you anything for next time. And so that's a thing that happens. And I think it's probably a thing that happens more than I realize, because I never know how people interact with people who aren't, me. That's just a fact. But kind of the most important thing and the most interesting thing about hitting this stage is that you talk to people more. People reach out and open lines of communication. You will get an email randomly from, the PR person at this company, or from the founder of that company, etc. I'm not going to name drop here because that seems tacky, but it gets to the point where you have lines of communication to various people, various makers, various companies. And I could actually send an email and get a response, and I've done that a couple of times. And this is the very best part of hitting this level, by the way. I can shoot an email to somebody and say, hey, you did this, why'd you do that? And I can get an answer, and I can use that information as a part of my review. That's really great. It's something that I really appreciate. And you learn some of the history as well. I mean, in some cases, company history, knowing what changed internally. For instance, and I will give a name this time, at Massdrop can actually change your view of a company. I talked to people, and there was a time when they were having major trouble with customer service. They spent a lot of time trying to get rid of that, and I'm seeing that in practice, so I gave them another chance. But, that needs to be coupled with action. Don't just BS me, people. But anyways, you also hear inside stuff, new plans, new ideas, weird rumors. No, I'm not sharing that. I feel no need there. But most importantly, you get to know these people, these makers, as humans. I know who's got something they're really excited about coming up soon. I know who's going through nasty divorces, who's really struggling to get by, which knife makers have a secret love for corgis. I know these things more and more, and you learn more about how their lives work as knife makers and as humans. And you develop empathy and compassion for them. You see the people behind the gear and not just the gear. And then the weirdest thing of all is that I've started to see that this thing that I do is kind of a weird hobby on the weekends. Greetings from Saturday afternoon, is a thing for these folks. Makers become genuinely excited by the idea of a positive review for me, because in some cases it can absolutely affect sales. Sorry about that in there, North Arm. And it can be meaningfully affected if I drop a negative review. I mean, and then different makers take negative reviews differently. Some shrug it off because, well, what the hell do I know? And to be fair, that's true. Some take it as an opportunity to address some of the issues where they agree that there are issues. And in fact, I've had some very good relationships with people develop out of a negative review. I respect those people greatly for doing that. And then some just get really angry with me and send nasty Instagram messages. And you know what? That's cool too. If it brings you joy, makes you feel better, have at it, unload. Look, and I'm sure there is another level beyond where I'm at, because, at the end of the day, I am just some random jackass. Who knows what kind of treatment the really big guys are getting? The folks with nut and fancy amounts of PewDiePie levels of subscription. Who knows what they're getting? But, the thing is, it is something that has changed. As my channel has grown, the level of independence and the level of sort of cooperation, well, no, not cooperation, involvement, I guess, with the industry, whether it be, local jewelers in the case of watches, flashlight, knife maker, whatever, that changes. And that's something that's really surprised me, and it's made me a little bit uneasy. And the reason it's made me a little uneasy is because I'd love to pretend that I'm just above all of it. That, I will always stay perfectly objective, that I am, a fair witness. I am forever and ever and ever going to be completely objective about everything. But the thing is, I have never been objective about a damn thing in my life. Objectivity, I don't think, is available to humans. So I try and think a lot about the factors that are weighing on my decisions, and I'm probably making this sound way more consequential than it is. I'm just some jackass saying stuff about gear, but I think about it a lot. And, I've come to realize that it's not really the money that tempts me. This isn't my day job, and it likely never will be. And let's be real here, there is no amount of corruption I could engage in that would make this channel support my fiancé and I. This channel is and has always been a side thing for me entirely, and it is and always has been viewer supported. My Patreon patrons, the people on YouTube who sign up for the YouTube Red, click on the ads and whatnot, those are the people who are putting money on my table, not the makers, and so I don't owe anything to that. And thank you, of course, to those people and the people who loan gear, etc., them who make this possible. So the money side of it isn't a temptation. I have zero desire, when I get the, we'll pay you $300 to review this, I don't freaking know. Then, no, I don't care there. And the thing is, it's not so much the review samples either, because I have viewers after viewers who generously offer gear to loan. It's not the case that I couldn't kind of stay in business, so to speak, without the free samples. That's one way that a lot of people really struggle, and I know smaller channels especially, like, if you're getting review samples from a company and then they stop, and that's your main source of knives to talk about, that presents a serious existential problem for the channel. That's not a problem I have, luckily. And so, if I say something negative about a Spyderco and Spyderco decides, and by the way, these two were provided to me by Spyderco. Thanks for Spyderco. This was by TRM, by Kaiser. This guy I just bought, but it's a stand-in for a Lamech because they lent me a Swish at one point. Anyways, beside the point. But if Spyderco suddenly decided, you know what? No, we're not sending anything to that jackass. That's fine. That's life. But to me, the main benefit of getting review freebies is that I can, help my patrons by giving them great deals, or more importantly and lately, help charity by doing these donation things and by doing raffles. That's been great, and if I can keep doing that, that's magnificent. But the thing is, if I burn a bridge, I can't get more review samples from a company in the future. That's life. That's the thing. For me, though, the hard part, the thing that makes me most worried and that I stay awake, so to speak, thinking about in terms of the regulatory capture independence thing is the empathy side. Knowing that even if it's completely justified, tearing something apart that somebody made could not only hurt these people's feelings, but could hurt their businesses. That's what bothers me a little bit. And this is a part of the reason that even when I'm giving a negative review, and I'm probably better at this lately than I was previously, but I try not to let things get too personal. I try to consider it like, grading a student paper or something, although that's a really condescending phrasing, because, I'm not, the heck do I know. But anyways, I'm trying to keep it so it's helpful, so it's, constructive criticism rather than just, you suck as a human, this is bad and you should feel bad. I try to go that route. But the thing is, I hate giving negative reviews, and a lot of people laugh because I give a lot of negative reviews, but I really don't like it, and I like it less and less every time I do it. And it's gotten to the point now where I'm honestly starting to turn down obvious bloodbaths. On occasion, somebody will send me, and especially like a small custom maker, will send me pictures, hey, I got this knife, do you want to take a look at it? And I'll just take 2 looks at it, and it's just like, oh, that's gonna be rough. And at that point, I'm just kind of like, no, I'm sorry. I mean, if it's just completely obvious from 2 seconds looking at the pictures that this thing's gonna try and kill me, and it's probably not well made, I'm just gonna do a hard pass there, because at that point, no real good comes of it. I don't like that. And so, that's been a thing. This is also why I love the stealth reviews so much, because if I can get a piece of gear on my table, look at it, and notice the bad and the ugly, such that the maker can fix the parts that they think need to be fixed before the product hits the shelves, then when I go back later and do an honest review, it's a better product, and I don't have to talk about bad and ugly because it's not there anymore. I love this so much, and it also gives me a chance to engage with the maker directly and understand the issues involved. Understand why, they had to do X, Y, and Z, and why that's, although it's not a great thing, why it's a necessary thing. That feels a little bit better. But anyways, I really, and I hope that makers do understand that a negative review of their gear isn't about them as humans, but about my view of the gear, and I think that the healthy ones absolutely do. But look, in the name of full disclosure, and in the name of my thinking about this too damn much, although, like I said, I'd love to pretend I'm completely beyond any influence from these increasing ties to the knife-making community, and frankly, to, elsewhere, watches, everything else. If something's gonna get me, if something's gonna make me go soft, that's probably it, the empathy side. Thinking about these folks as humans and wanting to, be kind to them as humans. But the thing is, I'm trying really hard to balance that out, and the way that this is balanced for me, at least, is by knowing that, let's say that I get a piece of just complete trash on my table that was sent to me by a maker. And I really don't want to hurt that maker. But at another level, if I then say, oh, no, it's great, it's a gem, you should go buy one, even though that's sparing the maker a little bit of embarrassment, a pain, a business loss, or whatever, it's going to hurt a lot more people. All of my viewers, all my patrons, all the people who watch this and actually think about my stuff as my reviews as a part of their buying decisions. I don't want to hurt those people more than anything. And so from like a purely utilitarian perspective, from like a trolley car problem where, you know, you pull the lever this way, one guy gets hit, you pull the lever that way, 10 guys get hit, you know, that right there, wanting to, you know, help a bunch of viewers rather than one maker, kind of, it makes me want to shoot the reviews straight, of course. And, you know, I also know that, you know, it'll hurt my reputation if I sweep stuff under the rug for a maker. That's not something I want to do. And so I will always be doing my best to stay as objective as I can be. And I may not always succeed, that's 100% sure, and you're welcome to believe anything I say or not. And if you feel like I went soft on something, tell me I went soft on it. And share your own experiences. I have no interest in trying to censor anything, but I guess the reason I made this video is because I've been thinking about this a lot. And I really am trying. I try to think about these things. I try to consider it. I try to mitigate as best I can these effects. But they are a thing, and it's something I've been thinking about. Anyways, let me know in the comments if you got any thoughts on this. It's a really complicated thing, and it's something I never thought I'd have to be dealing with. But the size of the channel is just astounding to me. Hope this has been interesting to you, that it didn't influence you too much, and that you have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Oh, that it regulatorily captured your heart, too. Bye now.